today's video, I'm going to be swatching and demoing all of the new Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit palettes for the holiday 2024 season. I do have all three of the palettes that they launched this year. I haven't even opened them yet or laid my eyes on them yet because I wanted to show you. I was ridiculous and paid an extra $5 to get mine in the Dragon box, because I just thought it was gorgeous. You can also get a bag as well for another $5, and each bag has the different artworks that are available in the three palettes, so you can choose. I almost got a bag too, but then I was like, you're being ridiculous. I mean, you were already being ridiculous with getting the box, but that's extra ridiculous. But I wanted to show you, if you do order it in a box, how it comes. It also does have a ribbon, which is just elastic. So let's see how they come. Okay. So they do come with some of the paper, and then I have my palettes inside. So if you are gifting one of these to somebody or gifting yourself, I think the box or bag idea is really nice, especially if you're purchasing these as a gift for someone else. Saves you some time, and it truly elevates the experience, as it should, for the price we pay. So if you aren't familiar, every single year Hourglass launches a collection of their ambient lighting edit palettes, and I purchase and review them every single year. They are a big purchase, something that is going to take a little bit of time and consideration because they are $90 each. So my goal here is to help you decide which color is best for you, if you even are interested in picking them up. So like I said, the palette will run you $90 each. They have three this year, and each with different artworks. Now, it is difficult to find on the website, but you can customize whatever artwork you want with whatever color you want. They do have kind of a preset, like this is the Dragon palette, this is the Evil Eye palette, and this is the Lotus Flower palette, where they'll automatically come with the same colors, but if you customize it, you can change it up. It's hard to find on the website, so I'm gonna link down below for you where you can go, and it'll take you straight to the customization so that you can pick what color story you want with what artwork. Okay, let's look at the artwork now. We're gonna start off with the Dragon palette, which I believe is the lightest color story. All of these are made in Italy and have a 12-month shelf life. And all of these palettes come with 5 brand new shades to the line, and then 1 repeat shade to the line. And each of that 1 repeat shade is a finishing powder. So those are naturally more translucent. Ooh, baby, ooh, look how beautiful this is. And then each palette is going to have the details of what's inside as well. And then if you are not yet familiar with these palettes, it's a magnetic closure. It does not stand up on its own, which is not my favorite. A mirror, and then you get 6 shades. Mine has a little nick in there. Hopefully nothing else comes broken, but there is. Uh-oh. Hopefully that's not consistent throughout the palettes here. But why these are such a big deal and easily the biggest launch for Hourglass every year is the individual prices of Hourglass powders. Look them up. When they come out with these palettes with 6 of the individual powders in one palette, it actually is a really good deal for all of the formulas that you're getting. Let's take a look at the Evil Eye packaging. This one, from what I've seen online, is the best for medium skin tones. We're gonna confirm that today. Let's see, any broken? No, this one's all good. And this one is visibly deeper than the Dragon palette. So I feel like this is the first year that they very clearly made them for different skin tones. And then finally, I'm the most excited to take a peek at the Lotus Flower. Obviously, if I wasn't a reviewer, I would not have purchased this because it's not intended for my skin tone, but I want to see really how deep it runs in person, because I do feel like the Hourglass palettes always look pretty light online and they run deeper in person. This, I think, is my favorite packaging. It's between this and the Dragon. I think the Dragon is more, I don't want to say classy, but it's fancier. But I love the flowers. Yeah, this looks deeper in person, you guys. as I thought it was going to, but I'm gonna swatch this for you. I'm doing a friend's makeup for her wedding. She has a deep complexion. I think I'm gonna hold on to this to use for her wedding. Anyways, I'm actually gonna do the swatches on my iPhone camera because I feel like in natural daylight and on my iPhone camera is how we'll get the most true to color image, because sometimes my camera can be a little finicky with blush colors and red tones. So let's get to swatching. I'm literally sitting on the floor because this is the best lighting, but I wanted to show you all three next to each other. This is the Dragon palette, Evil Eye palette, and Lotus flower palette. So it's from lightest to deepest, and I see that 100% for sure. Light skin tones, medium skin tones, deep skin tones for sure. So let's get a closer look at the Dragon palette. The bronzer looks very cool toned. I don't know about this highlight. It looks like it might be a bit deep for fair skin tone, but we'll swatch that. A more mauve blush. This is the repeat shade right here in this palette. Then in the Evil Eye palette, this is the repeat shade right here. These are all new. Look how much deeper this bronzer is than this one. Again, it looks quite cool tone. We'll have to see how it swatches. Very vibrant blush right here. I would say generally speaking, these blushes are vibrant. What's interesting is this is not a blush. This is the highlight, but it looks like a blush to me. And then this one is the blush in the palette. It almost looks like it should be the highlight. I was really excited about this blush. I don't know how it's going to appear on medium skin tones. And then here is the deepest palette. These two are highlights. Look how rich that one is. Of course, I think if they really wanted a full spectrum of palettes for all of the skin tones, they could even go deeper than this one, but this is by far the deepest that they've launched. Two blushes, and are these both bronzers? No, this is the finishing powder and this is the bronzer. Okay, let's get to swatching these. So let's start off with the Dragon palette. Here is the only repeat shade. It's a finishing powder. The rest of the 5 shades are brand new to the Hourglass line. In this palette, there's 2 finishing powders, which I don't love because they're more translucent. It's just not necessary. I would have preferred this to have been a colored powder. You get 2 new blushes. Siri. You get 2 new blushes, one peachy one and one mauve one. 1 bronzer and 1 strobe powder. I'm gonna go ahead and swatch them for you. We'll start off with Dreamlight, the finishing powder. And I'll explain the best ways to use these when I do my demo. But here is that first finishing powder. Then we have Peach Fusion blush, a little bit of a peachy shade. Seems quite sheer to the swatch. Divine Light finishing powder. This one is a little bit deeper, slightly different tone, but again, you can't tell me those 2 were unnecessary. Mauve Haze blush. I was excited for this. Again, quite sheer. This is gonna be great for fair complexions. Okay, the bronze. I wanted to see if it was warm. It is a little bit warm, but for the most part, it's not like an orange bronze at all. And then I am worried about this Sunlit Strobe Light powder. It pooled lighter on the skin than it looks in pan. But let me know what you think. The blushes in general swatch more sheer than I feel like I'm used to from Hourglass, but that's Dragon. Now with the Evil Eye palette, this is the only repeat shade. It's the Soft Light finishing powder. I really like this one. Then you get 3 blushes in here, which are these 3. 1 highlight that looks like it might be a little deep for me. And then 1 bronzer. So we're starting off with the finishing powder. You can see that has more depth than the others. Rose Gold Strobe Light. So this is a highlight. I feel like this would leave a cast on me and should be more of like a blush topper, but we'll see. That will look great on medium complexions. Pink Fusion Blush, more pigmented than the first palette. This is the one I was excited about. It looks really unique. I don't think I've seen an Hourglass blush like this. Looks really light. This is the Oasis Glow Blush. They describe it as an apricot color. Ooh, that looks really pretty. Vibrant Coral Blush. Definitely the most vibrant blush we've swatched thus far. And then Natural Bronze Bronzer. Not too much warmth in this one either, and it has less depth than I thought it would. Definitely less depth than I see in pan. But those are the swatches of Evil Eye. Definitely more geared towards a medium skin tone. And now we have the Lotus Flower palette. So in this one, the repeat shade is this one right here. This is Eternal Light. It is a finishing powder. All of the rest are new. And then there are two blushes here, which are these two in the middle. Two strobe powders, which is the highlight formulation. And then one bronzer. So let's get to swatching. We'll start off with Gilded Strobe Light. I'm gonna go with the highlights first. So that's how they look. Let's see. Gilded Strobe Light, wow. Radiant Rose Strobe Light. Definitely a lot more depth to those. Let's take a look at these blushes. This is Desert Flush. Red O is really exciting. Have they done a red blush before? I don't think so. So that's what Desert Flush looks like. Not as much pigment as I thought there was gonna be, but still, I mean, you can see how much more these carry than the other two. Then this is the finishing powder, which on my complexion is more of a bronzer. It almost has a little bit of green in there, but super smooth. And then Bronze Heat Bronzer. Hint of red in there, I would say. If you have a deeper complexion, I would love for you to weigh in if you think that this would work for your skin tone. But I'm pretty pleased with this. I think this looks really nice. So the first palette that we are going to play with is going to be the Dragon palette. So I'm going to go over how I like to use some of these formulas. I have just went through and spot cleaned all of my brushes, so there should be no residual color or powder on there from previous uses. First things first, let's talk about the finishing powder, Dreamlight. This is a repeat finishing powder, but I'm going to show you how I like to use it. So think of these more so, I don't use them to set makeup, I wouldn't recommend it. One way that I can use Dreamlight is as a concentrated, very, very natural highlighter. This is going to help bring a little bit of light to the face. So if I'm going for a pretty no makeup day, I like to use this powder, not no makeup, but like no highlight kind of day, but I still want a little bit of natural glow. This is a good one to really concentrate it and build it up, and you see how it added that brightness on this side of my face. Wherever you want to bring some light to the face, if you're around my skin tone, that's where you can use that. And you can see right here, and it adds a really subtle glow that is only really perceptible in daylight, that you'll see how soft and blurring this is. I'm going to stop there with this powder, but that's one way you can use it. I'll show you a different way momentarily. Let's try out the bronzer now. So this is Soft Bronze. Getting it on a Rephr number 3 brush. Has a little bit more warmth on the face than I feel it does in pan and by swatch. Really beautiful blend, as per usual, with Hourglass products. That's really pretty. Now I'm going to do side by side so that you can see the difference between the Dragon and the Evil Eye. As much as I would love to do a full face with each, I know a lot of you are in between those two palettes since they're a little bit closer in color. So I'm going to just do this side here. That's the bronzer. It's really, really gorgeous. Now for blush, I'm going to start off with the more neutral one, which is going to be the mauve blush. I'm going to keep it more towards the back of my cheek so you can see the color, and then we'll put the peach blush on the apple of the cheek so you can see that. And it's quite subtle, really natural. You're not going to over blush with this. Of course, if you're more on the fair side, a bigger likelihood of that happening, but it's super soft. It is a little bit buildable here. And with that finishing powder right underneath, you see how much glow that's bringing, just that alone. This is beautiful. This is right up my alley for a blush color. I really like that. It looks soft from within. And that's what's so special about Hourglass powders, is how glowy from within it looks. We're going to go into Peach Fusion right here next. This one is going to be more of a pop. It's a marbled shade, so sometimes you might get a little bit of a different color each time you use it. So it's pretty subtle on first application. Every shade in here is going to give a little bit of a glow. The bronzer less so, obviously, but the bronzer still isn't flat. So as I've built this up, really good if you love a more subtle blush, especially if you're like in the light medium skin tone as opposed to fair, then it will really be more of a natural flush. But that's pretty, and I do feel like both blush colors look different enough from one another. It's not stupid, you know, to have them in the same palette. Very pretty. And then we're going to go into this strobe powder. Now, there's different formulas that Hourglass has for highlight. The metallic strobe powder from Hourglass is going to be the most glowy, but the strobe powder is a step down, which is a-okay because super blending highlights aren't as trendy right now anyways. So this is Sunlit Strobe Light, and I was worried that it might be too deep on somebody with a fair complexion. You can always use the Dreamlight shade if you want for that highlight, but let's see. So from a side view, this highlight is pulling a little bit brighter than I thought it would. Good news. And you can always mix the finishing powder with the highlight, and that will tone down the glow as well. But look how natural that is. Do I have a cast? I do not have a cast. It is a lot lighter on the skin than it pulls in pan. I think you'll be okay with a fair complexion, but I need somebody to confirm because I'm not 100% sure. It's just pulling a little differently on the skin than it looks in the pan. By judging in the pan, I would say this will leave a cast for somebody with a fair complexion, but upon application on my skin tone, it looks like it could be okay, but if somebody could confirm, that would be very helpful. But I love this palette. This is really beautiful. It's a little bit softer on me, but I can still 100% make it work. I'm really excited to see the comparison with the Evil Eye palette. But we do have one more color, and we are going to use the new finishing powder, Divine Light, which is a little bit of a different tone, a little bit deeper. And I'm going to show you how I like to use a powder like this. So I would use Dreamlight here to brighten. And what I like to do to finish off my makeup is to melt all of the powders together. And something about the way that the finishing powder, I'm actually going to use the big brush for this. This is my Hourglass brush, by the way. It just melts the powders into the skin, finishes it off, especially if you're using a bronzer, blush, and highlight from a different brand and the finishes are a little bit different. The pigments and the pearls that they use are a little bit different. Sometimes it can look a little unblended. Finishing off with a glaze of this over everything just makes everything look so much more seamless. And if your makeup's looking a little bit dry on mature skin, put this all over and it will add the most beautiful, slightly blurring glow that you won't be able to see on camera truly. But in real life, it's just like this magic filter almost that Hourglass products have. And I would recommend if you are very, very fair, you can do that same technique with Dreamlight. So this right here is the Dragon Palette Demo. Really beautiful. I like this one a lot. Let's move into the Evil Eye palette next. So this one, more for medium skin tones. Let's see. I'm intrigued. So we're gonna start off with the bronzer, and we'll be able to do a side by side to see how different it looks. I was worried it would be a little bit more harsh with application. It's not too bad. Here I put a little bit too much color on my brush, but you can see it's blending out. Definitely takes less building up than the bronzer in the Dragon palette. And comparing it to the Dragon palette, it has more depth as well. So definitely for like light medium skin tones, this is almost, I would say, the perfect bronzer. And medium, you might need a little bit building up, but it's good. Okay, we have 3 blushes here. I'm gonna start off with the most subtle, the one that I was the most excited about, the Oasis blush, the one that they described as an apricot color. Really subtle. It's gonna be very, very subtle on somebody with a medium complexion, but it will add a really pretty glow. Kind of that no makeup kind of blush. Really pretty. It lays down a little bit more warmth than I expected. I really like that one. Very, very subtle. But we have 2 not so subtle colors. And I would recommend, since these 2 blush shades are going to be more vibrant, you can always blend it out and soften it with this one. I know I hate that I have to layer them, but I'm gonna try and keep them in very different spots. So let's do Pink Fusion. And I'm gonna keep this one a little bit higher, more so for the review purpose so you can see the color. Putting it a little bit over Oasis Glow. And you'll see these are blushes that are subtle. They're not going to give you that blush regret or blush blindness. So pretty, but they can be built up, of course, too. Much more subtle than I thought, though. I thought it would give more of a pop right away, but it is building up. Seamless. Gosh, I love these powder formulas. A little nervous, but let's try the Vibrant Coral shade. And judging by the name, it should be pretty vibrant. We're going to put this on the apple, and it should give us a pop. I mean, it's popping out in the brush already. Oh, very vibrant. That's one touch pigment right there. I don't know that having the Vibrant Coral and the Pink Fusion in the same palette was necessary. They are different, but for $90, maybe not different enough. I think pairing these 2, the Oasis Glow and the Vibrant Coral, it's a really pretty mixture. Keeping Vibrant Coral on the apple. This palette is definitely more poppy, it's more pink, it's more colorful versus this one on my skin tone, which is more on the natural and subtle side. This one is more summer appropriate, I would say. It just gives more pop if that's what you're into. And then to finish off, I'm going to take Soft Light, which is one of my favorite and most used finishing powders. Very close to my skin tone. And these are quite translucent, so it will work on a huge array. And again, I'm just going to use that to mesh everything together. I'm going to put the highlight over top. I just want to see how that goes. But I wanted to mesh all of the blushes together. So Gold Strobe Light, this highlight looks like it's going to be very deep on me. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if this is going to have to be a blush topper or what. Again, like the Dragon palette, it's pulling lighter than I thought. I'm going to put it on the other side so we can see if it darkens. But this is really pretty over this blush style. But it's not brightening. It has a stronger pink shift. I'm going to try it on this side of my face. Well, take a last look if you wanted to see the Dragon palette versus the Evil Eye palette. Let's get the Evil Eye over here. No, it deepens it for sure. It doesn't leave a cast, but if I was the tiniest bit lighter, I think it would leave a cast on me. But Hourglass powders aren't bad about leaving casts because of just how beautiful the formula is. It has more rosiness to it. It's more versatile than I thought. But it's probably not my favorite go-to highlight. Hourglass has highlights that I like better. Okay, so what I want to do is leave this side of my face intact. I'm going to freshen up this side of my face, and we'll finish off with the Lotus Flower palette. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the Lotus Flower palette, and it will be right next to the Evil Eye, so you can see if there's a difference. There really should be for this one. By all rights, this should not work for me. This should look bad on me, but let's see. Hourglass powders are really what you make of it. They can be quite subtle with a light hand. I don't know. Like this finishing powder, okay, it's not gonna work for me. I'm gonna use it as a bronzer right here, just to see how that works on me. Has more warmth to it than it seems. My baby hairs all getting in the way. I mean, that can work as a bronzer for me, no issue. This should not work for me. I'm gonna go quite light and honestly just circle it into my hairline. Should I see how much I can build it up? I don't want to. The tones are off for my skin tone, as they should be. Okay, why am I doing this? Tones are off. I'm stopping here because it's just gonna make the palette look bad, and it's not. It just shouldn't work for me. But we have some color down. I feel like it's more red in here. I just wanted to play around with the blushes. I feel like this is the lightest. So we'll start off here. What's the name of this? Desert Flush. Keeping that towards the back of my cheek. Ooh, that's pretty. This one can work for me. But I just put down that second layer and it was instantly more pigment. Remember, I bought this to swatch it next to the other ones and show you how it looks compared to the other ones. That looks good though. Okay. We'll do Red O. I actually was very excited about this one for my skin tone. I saw a video where a Victoria's Secret makeup artist said that they used red blushes on their models and everybody thought it was pink, but it was just red and super natural. So I just went in once. And this is the blush I think they used on the model on the website. Yeah, that has a lot of pigment. Like this is me with one dip. It has a little bit of a glow to it as well, but in hourglass fashion. Okay, this is too bright for me. That was risky. For right on the apple of the cheek, that's a bit much for me. And then they have two highlights which are not going to work for me at all. This one, potentially, blush topper. We'll use it. This is Radiant Rose Strobe Light. I'm just going to take a little of that. And it should add more shine to the cheek. Yeah, and it did it. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead to use it. And this is an option. Like, I know I had a couple people who have lighter skin tones and you said you wanted to purchase this for the red blush. Here's how you can get more use out of this. This can be a crease color. I have the Viseart Neutral Mattes palette on underneath. But see how using the bronzer here added some good depth to my eye. So if you do have a lighter complexion and for whatever reason you purchased the Lotus Flower palette, eyes, baby. You can use these on the eyes. And then we're going to use the copper highlight. Oh, excuse me. That's a pretty bronzy gold lid color, is it not? I dare you to tell me it's not. It's very pretty. And remember, with any palette that you pick up, you can use it on the eyes. It's not just for the cheeks. Oh, that added a pretty bronze to the look. Okay, anyways, very clear difference between the two palettes. So I hope with me doing the side-by-sides, it helped you if you were in between two palettes. So a comment that I get every single year about these palettes is that it's the same thing every year. And you know what? It kind of is. When it comes to cheek colors, since by nature you diffuse colors on your face, you can only get so many varieties. If you've picked up a couple in the previous years, functionally, you probably do not need to pick up new ones. They're not going to be that much different. Hourglass isn't really themed or monochromatic with them either. So do these all look the same as they looked last year and the year prior and the year prior? Yes. Personally, do I care? No. I use these palettes so much. I love them so much. They are my all-time favorite powder that I want to support the brand, and I love the artwork. I think the artwork is fun. But if you're a reasonable human being, if you have a couple, do you need these? No. That being said, what I find so special about these is the formulations themselves. Hourglass has an hourglass filter to them that you can only see in real life, where everything looks smooth, glowy, healthy, that no other brand, in my opinion, has ever been able to do. If you want to girl math it, look up the prices of the individual powders from Hourglass, and you'll see that these are actually a good deal to get 6 different shades, 3 different formulas. Another thing a lot of you guys say is you buy one every year and that's your cheek palette for the year. That's your gift to yourself for the year when it comes to complexion, which I think is a great idea. So I'm not going to do side-by-side comparisons. I've done them in the past. They look the same, but I do want to share with you from last year's collection, like light versus light, medium versus medium, deep versus deep, what Hourglass had intended. So just take a look with me. Obviously, the Dragon is the lightest this year. The lightest last year was the Jellyfish palette. So in case you bought the Jellyfish palette last year, this is what it looks like right next to the new Dragon palette. You know what's interesting about this palette? They both have 2 finishing powders, which made me so mad last year, and it still has 2 finishing powders. Why Hourglass? Why? Okay, the medium palettes. So I have Evil Eye, and the medium palette last year was the Tiger or the Cheetah palette. So here's the Evil Eye palette, and then here's the Cheetah palette. And then the deepest palettes. This one I really wanted to take a look at. I haven't compared them quite yet. No, this year's is deeper than last year's. So last year's deepest palette was the Snake palette, and I remember in their promo photos it did not look deep at all, but I was shocked that it had more depth than anticipated last year. But this year's, this is the Lotus Flower, last year's the Snake palette. I feel like they definitely tried to listen to consumers more with this year's palette. And there we have it. Those were the swatches and demos for this year's Hourglass Holiday Collection. I will have the links to these down below, as well as the page to customize, because it's hard to find. And also in their holiday collection, they also have some sets. They have a couple brushes as well that match the packaging that you can look into. This isn't just all that their holiday collection has to offer. And yes, I've seen the Barney's collab. The packaging is gorgeous. Very random. I talked about it a little bit on my TikTok if you want to see my thoughts on it. But it is the Elephant palette that launched 2 years ago. So if you have that palette, then you have the Barney's palette that launched. It's just pretty much re-promoted with new packaging. So if you want to see my thoughts on that, check out my holiday collection review from 2 years ago where the elephant was featured in that, and you'll get all the swatches and demos and all of that. Or check out my TikTok. I talked about it a little bit there. But I was asked, is it worth picking it up? I will say the Elephant palette was my favorite holiday palette that launched that year. It's super duper good. Take with that information what you will. So that's all I have for today's video. I hope you guys found it helpful. Let me know if you picked up these palettes down below. What are your thoughts? If you have a deep complexion, if you have a very fair complexion, let me know how the colors worked out on you. And let's get chatting it up in the comments. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Bye guys, have a good one.